Welcome to 20 Minute Tabletop, a podcast sharing the love of all things tabletop gaming in bite-sized pieces. I'm your host, John Wiki, here today with my co-host, Stevie.
This week is a battle of nature. It's a test for the Food Chain Championship belt. In the blue corner, prey. In the red corner, predators. Can you outfox them on the forest floor, or will you be devoured? Find out this week when we talk about the card game, Devour.
Let's turn to the back of the box to find out what Devour is all about. Devour, the nature game with more bite. Become one of 8 forest-dwelling creatures. Feed upon your opponent's cards. Bout after bout, compete for your very survival. Eat more than your opponent, propel yourself to the top of the food chain, and become a true apex predator. So let's jump into the first impressions. Stevie?
I thought this was a really cool card game. It's educational. It seems similar to War when we were first introduced to it. And as always, I have to mention that the art is gorgeous.
Yeah, my first impression is just a fun, easy to learn, easy to pick up card game, but as you got in, there's definitely a lot more rules and twists and fun parts of the game.
Right. So, John, do you want to talk about how we came across Devour?
Yeah, we're really excited to share this game with you. It's a game from PAX Unplugged, albeit indirectly. We met the game designer, David, by chance at the Panera Bread across from the convention center over lunch. We started chatting while he waited for his food and got to talking about his game with us and the family. It is a nature-centric game which drew in Stevie, as we're always looking for ways to work in games with educational value, and drew in TJ because animals. We had a lovely chat, exchanged cards, and went on with our day. After the convention, David reached out to offer to send us a game to try out for the family. Free of charge, no strings attached. We played it, we enjoyed it, and wanted to share the game with you, our listeners.
This week, we're going to take a slightly different approach. Included in Devour are 3 different ways to play. In addition, within one of those modes of play, there are 3 levels of difficulty. So we're going to talk a little bit about all 3, but mainly focus on the prey mode of play for this episode because that's what we've had the most experience with.
So that first mode of play is called Prey. This is a fast-paced card game for 2 to 4 players. The object of the game is to eat your opponent's card and grow the largest feed pile. In addition, there are even 3 levels of difficulty, as we mentioned: easy, standard, and advanced. This is great because it offers a low barrier entry, but you can ramp it up for additional difficulty and strategy. I also can't help but interject a great line from the introduction of this section. Whether you prey or become prey, you better pray you survive.
Grown.
Okay, we can continue.
For the easy mode, it's a straight head-to-head trying to eat each other. Each card has the name of the animal and a color at the top. This indicates what eats this card or this creature. In addition, there's a color number with this to make it colorblind accessible. For example, a bullfrog, which is light green, also has the number 10 attached to it. After some fantastic artwork, on the bottom of the card you have prey colors. These are small colored circles, each with their own numbers, and they show what the animal eats. The bullfrog eats 8 different colors of prey. Setup for this mode is pretty straightforward. You set aside some of the animal and avatar cards, as well as the event cards, and ignore some of the other elements on the card that we just haven't discussed yet. One person gets the Apex Predator token, and everyone gets 5 cards, and then you play. Play is easy in easy mode. The Apex Predator places a card face up in the prey zone. Then player 2 places a card. Then you resolve that feeding relationship. Whoever wins the feeding relationship places those cards into their feed pile, which will be used for the final score. The goal is to have your card eat your opponent's card without them eating you. If one card eats the other, without that reciprocal relationship, the predator wins and gets both cards. If they tie so that both animals eat each other, the person with the Apex Predator token always wins the tie. The last result in easy mode is called a Devour. This is when neither card eats one another. When this happens, you continue taking turns playing cards until one player eats the other and it resolves, and then that person gets all of the cards. After each face-off is resolved, you draw up to 5 cards and continue until you go through the deck.
Some cards also have immediate abilities, and others let you draw more cards. There are also horizontal cards that don't eat anything, and they are generally just a food source, like fruits and berries. I really like the balance of the apex predator because they have to play their card first, so you try to more easily counter it, but then they have the advantage of always winning the tie. I think it provides a real balance in that strategy.
If you want to play 3 or 4 players in easy mode, only 2 players go at a time, but they each play against the person to their left, and the Apex Predator token rotates around those matchups. Scoring at the end of easy mode is simple. You just count up how many cards you won, and the most cards win. So, John, what do you think of easy mode?
I thought it was quick, easy, and fun, even though I did get crushed.
Yeah, I thought it was really easy to learn. It's got a great low barrier to entry. And like I said, it's very similar in concept to, the old school card game War. When we played War when we were kids, whoever had the higher number won. If there was a tie, you kept going, right? This is the same thing, except it's got an educational component and a color component to it. You face off. Whoever eats the other person wins. If there's a tie, the apex wins. And if you don't eat each other, you keep going.
Yeah, and it's a nice, easy entry into learning the basics. So even if you want to play the more advanced modes, it's kind of nice to play a hand of this first to get that basics of how I'm reading the cards, what's going head to head. It keeps it simple too, so anyone can play easily. It's a very straightforward versus card strategy game. So it's great because younger players can very easily play this and not have to worry about anything else.
Let's talk about standard mode.
So the standard mode adds 3 new elements: special cards, main food source, and evasion. Setup is largely the same, only we add in a couple more cards that we left out last time. And we start with the same 5 card draw. So the round starts with a first new step to resolve any made food sources as well as immediate actions. So at the bottom of the card, under the prey colors, some animals have a main food source listed. At the start of the round, and only once per round, you can match cards that are the main food source with that card and place them together into your feed pile and draw back up to 5 cards. This lets you score some points directly. For example, if you have the porcupine and a vegetation card, you can put them into your feed pile for a quick 2 points. This is really helpful because the porcupine only eats 2 food sources, so they are harder to win in that prey zone.
The rest of the round operates the same in laying of cards. However, there's now another step in the feeding relationship resolution: evasion. Some cards may have 1 or more symbols in the upper right-hand corner. These are evasion symbols: a rabbit for speed, a bird for flight, and a turtle shell for unique. Gotta love nature. If you would be eaten in the resolution, you get to roll for evasion. That is, unless the other animal also has speed or flight to match yours. Just because the American robin can fly doesn't mean it can get away from a flying great horned owl. However, the unique symbols do not cancel each other as they are unique. You roll the evasion dice once for each symbol. If you match, it's a successful evasion. In a successful evasion, the evading prey gets added to that player's feed pile, and the predator is returned to their player's hand. However, if you fail, you still get eaten.
So remember our porcupine friend? Well, porcupines have quills for defense. So he has 2 unique evade symbols, giving him chances to get away. However, also has the added note that he cannot evade the fisher, which is a carnivorous mammal that is known for being one of the few that are able to successfully prey on porcupines. Nature. The latest addition are 2 special cards, the Black Widow and the Mountain Lion. When drawn, they have special abilities that are immediately activated. The Black Widow's venomous bite immediately bites one of your animal cards and puts them both in your opponent's feed pile. The Mountain Lion has a similar effect, but in reverse. You pick another animal of your hand, but place them both in your own feed pile as he hunted them down. So, let's talk about our enjoyment of this standard mode of play.
So, because we played the easy version and then we added this on, I found it really easy to follow. You're only adding a few rules going from easy to standard, and I found that that was a simpler introduction to this mode of play than maybe attempting to play standard straight out of the box.
Oh yeah, I found it was quick and easy fun, and it really added some fun with that rolling of dice, which I always love to roll dice, but it added an extra element that was a lot of fun in this game.
So, between the primary food source and the evasion rolling, I think this is the sweet spot for us playing as a family. There's some added layers for strategy, but it's not so complicated that the kids can't follow along or remember all the special bits and pieces. I do think it's a little more fun than, the easy version of card versus card. When you have that added evasion mechanic, it's not always just conceding defeat. And of course, like you said, who doesn't love getting to roll some dice?
Yeah, that's the part in the first version where sometimes you're like, well, they played that card. I have nothing that can eat that and not be eaten. So, most times it's like, okay, what card do I want to give up? Whereas this time it's like, okay, I'm going to give this card up, but I'm going to have a chance to win and at least get this one card to go on my pile. Okay, it's time to get advanced in nature. Consider this the 300 level course. The advanced version adds in 4 new elements: event cards, animal avatars, starvation, and scoring modifiers. There are also a couple more steps to set up. First, we choose one of the 6 event cards to be used in the game. The others will not be used. Next, we shuffle the 8 animal avatar cards and deal 1 face down to each player. The others will not be used. Then you deal everyone 5 cards, resolve any draw, immediate, special cards, and the main food sources. Then the event card gets shuffled into the deck and the first round begins. The gameplay is otherwise the same as standard play. However, when an event card is drawn, you read the card and follow the instructions. This changes some element of the game for a short time. So, for example, Fog, when it is drawn, for that round, you shuffle your hand and you each play a card randomly because no one can see where the animals are.
Your animal avatar card is a special card. It doesn't count towards the 5 card limit, but it can only be played once per game. When played, they also end up in your own feed pile. Each animal avatar has a special ability. For example, the red fox is cunning, which means you can use it to succeed on an evasion that you would otherwise have failed. Advanced adds one new twist on the evasion mechanic: starvation. If you roll a successful evasion and the dice has a set of crossed bones with the symbol, the animal starves. That card is flipped over, and you add the carry-on token and leave it in the prey zone instead of returning it to your hand. That is considered the next card you play, so if the other player has something that eats carry-on, it's time to devour.
And then the latest addition is scoring modifiers. This is important as some cards have modifiers if they're in your feed pile. Some count as 1 or 3 additional points, such as the white-tailed deer. However, some are removed or remove it and an additional card, such as the deer tick. That means that is a card where you want to lose and not win when you're in advanced mode. These extra things add an extra layer of strategy of what cards you want to use and trying to lose the battle at this point and trying to make sure you win, the right opportune time to win this one that'll give you more. Because a white-tailed deer doesn't eat a lot of things. So if you can manage to win with it, that's great to get in your pile.
For sure, the moose is also another one where you get additional points, and the only thing he eats is vegetation. So that's another one that I've held on to in my hand to keep those 3 points in hopes that at the, top of a round, that I pull a vegetation and can resolve that into my own feed pile. I got lucky and was able to do it once, but obviously that's not going to work out every time. The starvation was also a clever mechanic because it forces your hand on your next play, right? If you starve, you don't get to pick a card next round. You have to play that carry-on token, because if the other person has something that eats carry-on, and you would be shocked at what eats carry-on, let me tell you. If they have anything that eats carry-on, they win the next 2 points. End of story.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and it doesn't come up all the time because, like I said, you have a 6-sided dice with 3 symbols. So 3 of them are just the evasion symbol, and 3 are the evasions with starvation. So you have a 1 in 3 chance of matching the evasion symbol, but then also only half of that is going to actually be the starvation, which is kind of a nice way to do it. And like I said, sometimes the animal evades and they'll just go after different prey, but if they evade enough, that animal can starve. So it really feels in nature. And like I said, I love some of the stuff because I started looking up things for what are those unique abilities that are these things that are help these things survive, and looking into this and going down the rabbit hole. And that's where I learned about the fisher with the porcupine. And it's just kind of cool. It doesn't give you all the information sometimes, but it gives you that, hey, maybe we want to look this up. Or if you're using it with the kids, like, hey, let's learn about these animals. And it's just really fun and seeing, some things that eat a lot more food sources than you would necessarily think. You don't think of when you look at that animal, but they do eat a lot of different things. It's really kind of fun how those mechanics kind of really do tie in, and they're fun mechanics, they're fun game mechanics to use, great elements and use things that, just make the game fun to play, but they are all tied back to actual nature and facts and how it works.
So let's talk very briefly about the other two modes of gameplay. The first one's called Forest Floor. Forest Floor is a quick game for one player, though it can also be done cooperatively. This is a memory style game. You take on the role of a red fox trying to capture 3 baby eastern cottontail rabbits to bring back to your den to feed the family. There are other members of the forest that will cause issues, such as being stung by a yellow jacket. You need to finish your hunt before the mountain lion makes one trip around surveying the forest floor. Because when the mountain lion completes that cycle, they will know where you are and the game is over.
Yeah, so it's a fun little game. Where you're using memory and you got to move around, flip the cards up, know what the ones that you don't want to get, stay out of the mountain lion's way. And it's great because it's a single player game. So you can play it on your own, you can play cooperative, somebody else are trying to work together to remember where things are. The other game mode is called Outfoxed. So Outfoxed is a 2-player asymmetric abstract strategy game to outwit, outlast, and outfox your opponent. This is also a memory style game like Forest Floor. The setup is kind of similar looking. So one player takes the role of Red Fox, again, trying to capture the rabbits. However, as Red Fox is hunting, so is the Black Bear, hunting you. The other player takes control of Crow, blaming the Red Fox for messing up her breakfast. They fly around the outside, rearranging Forest Floor to make it harder and trying to help the Black Bear find the fox. So, Red Fox enlists the aid of their dear friend, the Bald Eagle, to foil the Crow, but Crow teams up with their pal, Black Bear. So, it has that kind of memory style element, but it's one player against another player and trying to work that out. So it's another fun, it looks like a great one. We didn't get a chance to play this one yet, but it looks like another fun, different style of play. And you get all of this in the box, all with the cards. And there's different ways to set it up and move through that. And it randomizes with the cards, so it can be different every time you play it as well.
Yeah, so we're talking about 3 different games, one with 3 different levels, all in this one little box, which honestly I found really impressive. But first, let's talk about length of play. So, Prey is listed at about 20 minutes, which sounds about right. It can take a little longer when you have more than 2 people as you're rotating around, which we found when we played the easy mode with 3 people. It takes just a little longer because you have to make sure that you're remembering to move the Apex Predator token and all of that. It also took slightly longer when you get into the more advanced roles because you have to add in the evasion dice, the food sources, and the avatar abilities. The extra mechanics add some, but not a lot of time. Even when we were playing the standard version, I think we were running around 20 to 25 minutes, give or take.
Yeah, Forest Floor says it takes about 5 to 10 minutes, as it is very much designed to be fast paced. And also, when you're a single player, it can go a little quicker because you're in charge of how quickly you go. Outfox is around 25 minutes. It is the same idea as Forest Floor, but you have competing strategies, so that always takes a little longer to work through a game.
So, some cool notes about this game. Devour was a successfully funded Kickstarter at the end of 2022. You can get your own copy at devour-shop.com. That is DEVOUR-SHOP. And we mentioned it has that educational value when discussing things like the food web, how animals work, and this game is actually in use in over 50 schools in the northeastern United States, being used by teachers as classroom supplement. When we had a chance to meet David, he explained to us that his spouse is actually a teacher, and that's how this game came to be. Also, all of the animals that you'll see in Devour are native to the northeastern United States. And he mentioned to us that they are looking to expand to other regions of the US. But the version that's out now that you can buy, all the animals you'll see in there are native to the Northeast.
Remember the Forest Floor mode we discussed, where you're the Red Fox looking for baby eastern cottontail rabbits? Well, after the base mode, there is a storyline campaign and instructions where Mother Nature is asking you to help Red Fox and their family survive the year. So the instructions actually offer 4 scenarios where you set up the floor, but you modify it which cards are in and out. Can you help Red Fox navigate the waters on spring showers or avoid the rats in the summer? Then you can actually head to devourcardgame.com and find over 40 more scenarios to play through that are on their website. They're grouped by season, so there are a bunch of winter scenarios, spring, summer, fall, and they are currently on a month-by-month scenario being added through at least October 2024. They all vary in difficulty and are listed from easy all the way up to very hard. So there's something for everyone and likely some very difficult ones requiring really tough strategy. So if you like that forest floor mode, there's a ton more of ways to play it to really change it up more than just randomizing the cards that are on the floor and how they're laid out.
I think that's really neat because one, it gives you scenarios to play through. It gives you a difficulty level. So if you're trying to learn forest floor mode and you want to make it easy, pop on the website and use one of the scenarios. On the flip side, if you're like us and you're looking for something educational and you want to talk about four seasons, even though maybe you don't live in a place with four seasons like us, and you talk about how those seasons affect animals and the food webs and what they eat, this is a great way to do that because those scenarios are put out seasonally.
I think that's really cool. So I think it's about those time for final thoughts.
It's a fun game. I enjoy the mechanics. And obviously, it's a great way to reinforce learning, like I said, about food webs, but it's just also straight up fun.
I think it's a great card game. I love all the different modes. I love the way it builds on itself, and I really enjoy it and want to play some more of it.
Yeah, definitely very clever.
I'm your host, John Wiki, and you can find me on Threads and Instagram as John_Wiki_games. That's WICKEE.
And I'm Stevie, and you can find me on social media as Stevies_games.
20-Minute Tabletop is a Morecore Studios production. Theme song by Arthur Rowan, Morecore art by Sita Duncan. Do you want more tabletop gaming fun? Subscribe to 20-Minute Tabletop on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. Like what you hear? Leave us a review while you're there or tell a friend. Find out more on our website, 20mintabletop.com. That's the numbers 20mintabletop.com. Or connect with us on Threads and Instagram as @20mintabletop, @20mintabletop. Thank you and roll with fortune. This is really helpful, especially because the porcupine only eats chewed forts. Only eats chewed. This is really helpful, especially because the porcupine only eats chewed forts. Wow.
Mm.
This is really helpful, especially. This is really reset. This is really helpful because the porcupine only eats two food sources, so they are harder to win in that prey zone.
The restaurant. Wow, it's catching.